Hi, welcome to Mountain Craft Studio. My name's Christine. Come on in and I'll show you what I've been working on. So for generations, my family have been makers and artists. Anything from weavers in the 1600s, blacksmiths later on in the 1800s, to most recently pottery for my mom. The need to make and create is strong, and it definitely runs in our blood. When I was growing up, I had kind of an idyllic childhood. It was the Back to the Land movement from the 70s. We lived in the most remote place in the state, in Indiana, and it was as close as you could possibly get to being Little House on the Prairie. And I used to think I was actually Laura. I was surrounded by textiles, things handmade. So I grew up watching my family members make things, create things. This sampler is a reproduction of one that is housed at Colonial Williamsburg. It's called the Chase Sampler. It is my all-time favorite. I've grown up with, it's always been in my life. I've never not had it in my life, and I think it is just absolutely gorgeous. You can actually still find these out on eBay if you have the desire. It has everything in it that I think a sampler should have, and it's just gorgeous. At the same time that my mom was making this in the very early 70s, she taught me how to stitch. And it happened so long ago, I actually don't even remember it. Like, I've always done it. I don't remember learning it. It's just always been part of what I do. I actually did create my own sampler when I was a little girl. It was on the same fabric and used the same wools as this little piece. It just had uppercase alphabet though, and my mom saved it, for years and years. And then when I was pregnant and I had my own little girl, she gave it to me framed, and we had it in her nursery. So of course, I passed it on to my daughter when it was time for her to have a nursery. Unfortunately, several years later, she experienced a house fire, and so it's no longer around. Everybody was safe though, so that's all that mattered. This little piece was actually my first time learning crewel embroidery, and I had given this to my grandmother. That I do remember. I do remember her having it in her home. She actually was a very talented artist. I definitely remember her being constantly making, doing that sort of thing. She used to send little letters with drawings. She could draw beautiful things. And she gave me my first sewing box. This isn't it, but it looked exactly like this. It's the same size, only it was pink, and she had painted little flowers on it. And I remember I had all of my sewing supplies in this one little basket. I couldn't put all my sewing supplies in that basket now. But my first sewing project was this little pillowcase for my doll, and it says baby, in case you're wondering. My stitching had left a lot to be desired, but it was funny that my mom had saved this all these years. So now I collect sewing boxes. I have them everywhere, and when I found this and it looked just like the one I had to have it. So then later in life, I had my own little hobby farm. We had sheep, chickens, alpacas, llamas, and I learned to spin. And I also learned to knit, and then of course to weave. It's a slippery slope once you start heading down there. So all of those things are something I'm also passionate about. that and the history of it, getting down to, you know, the fine detail is something I enjoy. I actually have a shawl that I made that was, I raised the sheep, I sheared it, I carded the wool, spun it, and then knit it, and it's worth about $80,000 in my opinion by the time you calculate the number of hours. But I enjoyed the process and I enjoyed learning it. So at that same time, my passion for history with the making, I ended up volunteering at a living history museum and then later moving to another one as an actual employee. And with my farm background, I also worked in their ag department and textiles. And so really, really enjoyed doing that. I retired a few years ago, and now this is what I do. Because of the pandemic, I've given up my long arm quilting business. I actually have an autoimmune disease, so I've pretty much become a recluse, which is good because then I have lots of stitching time. Nowadays, I actually prefer to work on reproduction samplers mostly. This is one that I just finished and is ready to go to the framer. This is the Maria Selby Humphrey by Blackbird Designs. And I chose this one because of its very primitive look. Especially if you look at the booklet and really look at how it was made. She did a really good job with what she had to work with. We actually have a 1800s log cabin, and so I plan to frame this and have that in that log cabin. I think it'll be fantastic. The other type of thing that I like working on is sewing. Like I said, I collect sewing boxes, and so any little sewing paraphernalia or anything related to a box of any sort. I also collect just boxes. I love doing that. This is something I made years ago. It is also by Blackbird Designs. It's from the For My Friend booklet. This box, I think, came from Joann's. I just painted it, roughed it up, and then on the inside, I actually put a false bottom and the top, and then created a little pocket for my magnifiers. And then I keep this right next to my sewing spot, and I can keep my silks in here. It's perfect for that, and other little things. I use it every day, and I love it. It's been fantastic. That has led me to make other things. Since my grandmother made a box for me, I decided I needed to make a box for my granddaughter. And I just finished this one. This one is Fairy Garden by Blackbird Designs. It's the Garden Club series. I just created the top, and then there's 2 layers of fabric. These boxes you can get at Joann's, or no, Hobby Light. And I just added some feet on the bottom, and then this one's actually a jewelry box, and so I just added some cushioned flat pieces to the bottom, just to, make it a little bit nicer. Normally I would paint boxes, but with the shape of this one and the way it's constructed, you can't remove the lid. So I decided to use Danish oil to finish that. It's the same thing I use on my looms and my spinning wheels and everything else. And in a few years, this will really be beautiful as it ages. And hopefully it's something that she's going to keep. So I think it'll only get better with time. Assuming she doesn't destroy it. So that kind of actually leads me to what I'm looking forward to working on. I watch a lot of Flosstubes, and I'm looking forward to starting a project soon with Katie Strauken. I'll link it below. she actually has planned to do a box like this. This one, the box comes from Amazon. And then she's going to use the Modern Folk Embroidery Forget-Me-Not sampler. She already has a start along scheduled. She's getting things together. She's going to cover the exterior of the box with this sampler. And what she's working on right now actually has red silk thread, and it is amazingly beautiful. I can't wait to get started on mine. I'm not sure. I haven't decided what color. Black sampler November coming up. I kind of want to go with black, but I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, it's going to be fantastic to actually step it up a notch. I've done a lot of boxes and things like that, but I've never done a completely embroidered box all the way around. I think that'll be something fun and something to look forward to. I will link her Flosstube below. You really should go check out what she has made. It's just amazing, the embroidery that she has produced. It's just mind-boggling. So I actually started this channel because of Sherry, the Colorado Stitcher. She, on one of her videos, I think it was video number Flosstube 8 on her, when she showed her sewing room. She had a magazine. It was the November-December issue 1991 cross stitch magazine, and she put up this picture of a sampler from that magazine. And as I watched that, it occurred to me that I have become my mother. Little backstory. So my grandmother, actually I should go all the way back. My grandmother was a legitimate hoarder. She, having grown up in the Depression, during the Depression years, didn't throw anything away, and was an artist, like I mentioned. And so I can actually remember walking through, you had to walk through the bedroom to get to the bathroom. And when you walked, there was just a path that went through the room. There were boxes of craft supplies and whatnot everywhere in that room. And the dining room was the same way. And you had to go through the dining room to get to the kitchen. And so then when she passed away, after the kids were in there, cleaning things out, they found a bed they didn't even know was in there. Nobody had seen it for years because it was under all those boxes. So the hoarding tendency in the family is pretty strong too. My mother, however, she did a pretty good job of holding it off in their younger years, but as she got older, the more she collected and the more she saved. And at first it was just this one storage room, and then the next thing you know, it was the entire upstairs of the farmhouse. But she was always the person that you could come up with the most obscure thing ever and say, man, I really wish I had whatever this thing was, and she would have it, and she would know exactly where it was. So when Sherry posted that picture the other day, I was catching up on back episodes, I just shook my head, because I have the floss kit for that sampler from 1991. Yeah, all the flosses. It even has the little charm, the little star charm right there that goes onto the Santa. Yep. And up until recently, or not too long ago, I actually still had the fabric. Oh, he's upside down. That was the start of the Santa in the middle. But I needed some fabric for another project. And I have not, for years, have not been able to remember where I put the pattern. I'd never throw a cross-stitch pattern away, right? I'd never give it away. Could not for the life of me figure out what I'd done with it. Well, it's because it was in a magazine and not an actual chart. Anyhow, I no longer wish to make that particular sampler. So these are going to be in the mail today, on their way to you, Sherry, because I think you need to have this. It's been sealed in here for 30 years. It's perfectly safe. It needs to be with that magazine. So it's on its way to you. And if that weren't bad enough, if a 30-year-old work in progress were not bad enough, yeah, I pulled out another one when I found this. This one, I started this as a child. I actually started this, I can remember, it was, I want to say, 4th grade. It was between 4th and 5th grade. So it must have been 5th grade. We'll just call it 5th grade. Yeah. It just needs the G, and the M just needs satin stitching, purple, this color, purple satin stitching. There's probably a lot of things going on there that a therapist could have a field day with as to why I don't have this finished. But yeah. So I think I have the world's oldest work in progress. Like, I can't imagine anyone else keeping it for this long. It had to have been, what, if I was 5 in kindergarten. It's 42 years old. It's a 42-year-old work in progress. Yeah. So you know what? I have decided, if this is my claim to fame, which having the world's oldest work in progress, then I'm taking it because, my I haven't become famous for anything else, My husband pointed out the other day when I had to get steroids shot into my hip that there goes my Olympic aspirations. So I'm going to leave you today with the challenge of how old is your oldest work in progress. I think we need to survey all of Flosstube and all of Instagram to find out who really is the biggest slacker of needlework. And if I am, I am. And I will concede that, and that'll be okay. But if I'm not, someone's going to win a really nice prize. Maybe a really fancy project bag. I will do a custom order, really fancy project bag, to keep that precious work in progress in. So here's what you got to do. So go down underneath, leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Tell me, how old is your oldest whip? And be honest, okay? And then go to Instagram and post it. Tag me with the hashtag World's Oldest Whip Challenge. We got to find out who it is, right? I just got to know. And I'm okay with it. I really am. Thanks for stopping by.